All right, hey guys, it's Brian Mayer with the Mayer Group at eXp Realty, and my phone keeps ringing with people calling, asking me about interest rates, what to do, what's going on. So I figured, why not bring in the experts? So I got Mr. Tim Murphy. How are you doing, Tim?
Dude, just killing it, man. Loving life.
So Tim is the my main man, my loan officer here in Southern Maryland, and we were just having this conversation about what does this mean for, maybe the next month or two, 6 months, 12 months, and then maybe the next 3 or 5 years. Like, what do these interest rates mean,
Right.
and how would that affect you if you're thinking about buying or selling, but probably more closely tied to the idea of buying a house. So Tim, what's going on?
So, great question, Brian. So, a couple of important things. So, number one, inflation. They just announced 7.5% in inflation rate, the highest it's been in 40 years. As inflation goes up, interest rates go up. Why do rates go up? Rates go up to slow down, right? The process of the economy, if you will, and in return, it causes the inflation to drop down. So, number one, you've
So
got a
so
huge hit.
so Tim,
Yeah,
you said inflation went up 7.25%.
seven and a half
So
percent.
that means, like, if you bought a gallon of milk last year, it cost 7.5% more this year.
Correct. Exactly
Everything,
right.
everything in basically that means everything in life now costs almost
Seven and a half
10%
more.
more.
Yeah. What's happening to real estate, Brian? Think about it. Same thing, right?
It's been faster than that. Last year was about 16.5% for the state of Maryland. So, over double inflation.
And then this year, the projection is
6.25 is what they're projecting. Now that's a national. But
I think it's low. I mean, Brian, if
okay.
you look at the number of houses on the market, I mean, we did a study the other day. We found there were only 12 rental properties in Calvert County last week
That's
available to
probably
rent.
high, honestly. I've looked before and there's like four.
So
So yeah.
what's that tell you? That tells you exactly what's going on. Supply and
Don't try to
demand.
rent a house.
Right? Well, it's called scarcity. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And that's the same factor because as interest rates, and here's the key, ready? Interest rates are projected to continue going up. Why? Inflation, number one. Number two, ready? The federal government has come back and said we're going to taper down and not buy mortgage-backed securities come this June. That's massive. That means they've got to raise the interest rates in order to accommodate more investors to buy mortgage-backed securities.
So does this mean on some level maybe there's a crash around the corner? Is there sort of like a Chicken Little situation going on?
No, I don't think there's a crash. I mean, to be quite frank with you, I think we might see a little flattening of the curve down the road. But as far as a crash, no, not at all. And the reason for that is because, look, let's face it, when you make an offer, Brian, right now, how many people are making an offer on your listings? I mean, on average, what would you say?
Well, I price them high because I get them pre-appraised. Let's not get into all that. Let's say that when I help people buy a house, yes, sometimes there are multiple offers still, and that's also because there's not a lot of houses to buy. But maybe just touch really quick. Is the scenario that existed in 2007 exist today? Because I know
No.
the answer, but
Yeah.
you want to explain why really
So,
quick,
so,
just
so the
because I
answer
know
is
people are worried
yeah.
about this.
Now, in 2007, 2008, people bought homes based on the ninja principle. No income, no asset, no job. Some people didn't have pauses. They bought homes. And what that tells you is that people are buying homes without the proper financial consideration. In other words, they couldn't qualify for the house.
Yeah, there was a large percentage of people with horrible credit, and
Correct.
bad credit.
Correct.
It represents your ability to pay back the stuff you borrow. That's what the whole purpose of credit scores is. So people had horrible credit, were buying houses, and lo and behold, they missed the payments. And it's not to say
Right.
it was all their fault. It was predatory lending. But to your point, Tim, the percentage of and you guys use these terms like a paper, and how would you describe, like, do you have any figures off the top of your head of bad credit people that are currently out there? Is there any worry about defaulted mortgages causing a housing crash?
And that's it's called the ability to repay. There's an actual rule that was established back in the teens, 10 years ago. And what they said was, we as lenders have to demonstrate a person's ability to repay, which means tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s. We're looking at everything. I mean, down to the penny.
I mean, I was in the business
Yeah.
back then. We did all that then too. I say not everybody did, but it's not like you started just looking at W-2s in 2010, right? Like you always
No.
were, but not
But,
everybody was, right? That's what we're saying.
Well, no, actually in 04, 05, 06, 07, they did so many stated income loans. It was unfreaking real. And
Yeah.
that's what caused that drivers that they're making all these loans to people that never qualified, number one, right? And there was massive speculation. I mean, we were buying houses to be built, and then before the house was finished, they'd sell that contract.
Well, people feel like that's what's happening today. It's like all this, there's like this frenzy. So we've established that situation doesn't exist. And because of that, for that reason, there doesn't appear to be the same housing crash around the corner. It looks like maybe interest rates are going to go up. That'll slow things down because, like you had mentioned, this 10% of buying power. Let's just go over this really quick. Like if, house prices went up 15% and then now interest rates went up 1%, meaning that your mortgage went up another 10%, that's 25%. So when you're looking at, if you're looking at a house in 2000, let's say you waited 2021, you're like, hey, I'm going to wait a year. That $500,000 house, or no, the $400,000 house now has the same payment as a $500,000 house.
Exactly.
In so many terms.
I like to think of it as this: as rates go up, and use that analogy you just said. Rates go up 1%. We just lost 10% of our buying power, and then the price of the house went up 10%. Brian, it's like a 20% adjustment. That's massive.
Yes. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like that wasn't an exact analogy because the house that was worth $450 is now worth, $495. And then the payment went up 10, but whatever it is, it's definitely a situation where what you could afford last year and what you were buying at a certain price range has adjusted. And even though it looks like interest rates are going up, it will still continue to adjust to the disadvantage of the buyer. Like it will cost more money to buy a $500,000 house, whether that be that the house price went up from 475 to 5, or the interest rate went up so that even though maybe the house price stayed the same, it now cost what a $500,000 house would cost as interest rates go up.
And then Brian, imagine, ready? Not just when you're buying it today, imagine 30 years of interest at that higher rate. It's massive.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little weird. But again, let's zoom out. Let's just zoom out. Again, so you and I have been working together a very long time. I started in 09, and when in 09 it was 5.5% interest, and that was like amazing. When I wrote my first 5.25% interest, I thought I was giving somebody a birthday present, and then it just went down and down. So historically, we got to zoom out even farther though. You go back 20 years, 15, 30, 40 years, like even this 4% interest is ridiculous.
It's massively low. I mean, if you go back to the Ronald Reagan years, Brian, I bought my first house at 84 and rates were 18%.
I bought my first one in 01 and it was 7. I called my parents and was bragging, what's your interest rate? Mine's 7, right?
Exactly.
So, all right. So we're still in good shape overall. The economy is still good
shape.
And the interest rates are still historically low and people are still in a great position. And there's so many loan programs. That's the other thing is like, back when you bought that house in 1984, there was only 20% down and 30% down. And
you can still do FHA and VA, but they were nothing like today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's still no money down loans. There's still down payment assistance programs. And, you do have to have minimum credit scores, but they're significantly low, all things considered. Like even from 09 to today, you can still get a house with a 600 credit score and no money down loans. Like that's still ridiculous. And you can still get down payment assistance to help with closing costs, right? Because now maybe you get a no down payment loan, but in 2009, everybody was getting their closing costs paid for by the seller. Now we need somebody to help. We can't rely on the seller to pay the closing costs. You have to come up with your own, but Tim offers some multiple programs to help with that.
Always something out there, Brian. You know, every situation is unique. You just got to jump in and take a look at it.
So let's go just 12 months out, Tim. What do the tea leaf readers say for 12 months and maybe 24 months? Like, what's the forecast for the world?
So the forecast, that's a great question. So forecast number one, okay, and this is massive, is that they're expecting rates to be between 5.5% and 6% by the end of the year. And that's because the feds are right now predicting, 3 to 4 to 7 raises over the next 12 months and through the end of the year.
Wow.
So imagine the feds bumping them up. It's already projected out. It's number one, right? Number two, they've got to push inflation down, right? And they realize the only way to do it is raise rates, raise the numbers. And that's what they're doing. They're just popping it out. Now,
so how about people that are, because the problem we've been having is not enough people are deciding to sell their house, even though it seems like there's been a lot of transactions. Is there anything going to affect the number of sales?
I believe, this is just me personally, I think the federal government's going to come out with some kind of program sometime, somehow to juice things back up. But at this point in time, sales, in my opinion, interest rates are the only thing that are going to slow things down. But because of the unprecedented number of people still looking and the lack of inventory, Brian, I don't see anything shaking up anytime soon.
Well, the thing that I see in my world that drives a lot of it is people that are like, now it's like everybody was holding their breath. What's going to happen with the pandemic? And then it looks like 3 to 5 years out, there's a pretty, like I have a client that works for the federal government. They said, as long as Biden is in office, we won't have to work full time. And here in Southern Maryland, you don't want to live on the edge of Southern Maryland and drive to DC, right? You're talking deep in St. Mary's County, deep in Charles County, like way out in, this town and whatnot. But if you only have to go to work one day a week, or, for at least the next 4 years, you won't have to go in. Right. And it's likely that's going to continue. People are looking farther and farther out. Like they say, hey, I was showing out in Swan Point. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, this is a hike. And they're like, well, if I don't have to drive to work, let's do it. You know what I mean? And then I'm like way down in Leonardtown, and for people that work in DC. So people are deciding they want to live farther away. And if you can live anywhere, let's not live right next to DC where everybody else lives.
Well, and I think you nailed it. People are looking at quality of life. They did the COVID thing. They got stuck in their house. Now they've been working from home. They're comfortable, and they're like, I need a bigger house. I need an office to work from.
Yeah, it's like if you end up like the reverse goes in, and now you have to drive an hour and a half every day. You're gonna want a nicer car,
right?
Or exactly. You know what I mean? Like so now it's like I'm sitting in my house. I don't want a nicer house.
But now you nailed it right there, Brian. So imagine this.
Instead of one like behind me, you're just sitting in bricks. You just have bricks on your house.
But here's the thing, right? They don't have to buy new cars anymore. They don't have to worry about their wardrobe up on the other
than right. Yes.
But think about the savings that people are achieving, and what people have realized. You know what? I'd rather pour my money into a house. I'd rather have some sticks and bricks. I would like to have the quality of life. I want the school systems that I desire. I want to be near the parks, recreation, whatever the case may be. And when you start to put that in consideration, what's going to happen to the outlying areas? Prices are going up, man.
Yeah. And you're right. And so that's the short, the mid, the long term, the ins, the outs, the whys, the who's, the where's, the everything. Tim, I think you covered all of it.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I always have fun with you, Brian.
Is there anything else you want to go over? I think we really covered it.
Dude, I think, we start with rates. I think we just blew up. I truly believe this is the best time to get in, because if you can snag a house now and jump into it, to me, it's a home run, just based on the forecast. Because someone said to me, how do you fight inflation? And they said, you lock in your cost of money at a low rate. Because inflation also means that the value of your dollar is going to change dramatically, right? It's going to take more dollars to buy that bottle of Coca-Cola, for instance, right? So that being the case, if you can lock in your cost of funds for your house at a 4 or 4.5, it doesn't matter right now, and that same house is going to cost you 5, 6, 7%. Down the road, you have achieved a major milestone because you have clamped down and kept part of your inflationary cost at a low end. That to me,
and people always think salesmen are trying to just come up with some shiesty that makes nothing but sense. I mean, if you're going to borrow on a mortgage and you're thinking about this year versus next year is really the only people we'd be talking to. Or you're thinking about selling and maybe wait until next year, maybe wait until, and maybe in the fall.
Right.
It does seem like this all makes perfect sense. So carpe diem, my friend.
And with that, Brian,
All right, everybody, give us a call. Let's make it happen.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.